Chapter 17, Rhizobia. It had crossed my mind that Turtle might actually have recognized the cemetery her mother was buried in, and if so, I wondered whether I ought to take her back there to see it. But my concerns were soon laid to rest. We passed 4 cemeteries on the way to the Potawatomi Presbyterian Church of St. Michael and All Angels, future home of Stephen and Hope Tutu, and at each one of them Turtle called out, "Mama!" There would come a time when she would just wave at the sight of passing gravestones and quietly say, "Bye-bye." Finding the church turned out to be a chase around Robin Hood's barn. Maddie's directions were to the old church. The congregation had since moved its home of worship, plus its pastor and presumably its refugees, into a new set of buildings several miles down the road. I was beginning to form the opinion that Oklahomans were as transient a bunch as the people back home who slept on grass-flecked bedrolls in Roosevelt Park. The church was a cheery-looking place, freshly painted white with a purple front door and purple gutters. When Maddie used to talk about the Underground Railroad, by which she meant these churches and people who carried refugees between them, it had always sounded like the dark of night. I never pictured old white Lincolns with soda pop spilled on the seats, and certainly not white clapboard churches with purple gutters. Reverend and Mrs. Stone seemed greatly relieved to see us, since they had apparently expected us a day or two earlier. But no one made an issue of it. They helped carry things up a sidewalk bordered with a purple fringe of ageratums into the small house behind the parsonage. Meanwhile, Esteban and I worked on getting possessions sorted out. Things had gotten greatly jumbled during the trip, and Turtle's stuff was everywhere. She was like a pack rat, taking possession of any item that struck her fancy, like Esperanza's hairbrush, and tucking another one into its place, like a nibbled cracker. Turtle herself was exhausted with the events of the day or days, and was in the back seat sleeping the sleep of the dead, as Luann would put it. Esperanza and Esteban had already said goodbye to her in a very real way back in Mr. Armistead's office, and didn't think there was any need to wake her up again, but I stood firm. It's happened too many times that people she loved were whisked away from her without any explanation. I want her to see you and see this place, so she'll know we're leaving you here. She woke reluctantly and groggily accepted my explanation of what was happening. "Bye-bye," she said, standing up on the seat and waving through the open back window. I think we all felt the same exhaustion. There are times when it just isn't possible to say goodbye. I hugged Esperanza and shook hands with Reverend and Mrs. Stone in kind of a daze. The day seemed too bright, too full of white clapboard and cheerful purple flowers for me to be losing 2 good friends forever. I was left with Esteban, who was checking under the back seat for the last time. I checked the trunk. "You ought to take some of this food," I said. "Turtle and I will never eat it all. It will just go to waste. At least the things there are whole jars of, like mustard and pickles." I bent over the cooler, stacking and unstacking the things that were swimming in melted ice in the bottom. Esteban put his hand on my arm. "Taylor." I straightened up. "What's going to happen to you here? What will you do?" "Survive. That has always been our intention." "But what kind of work will you find around here? I can't imagine they have Chinese restaurants, which is probably a good thing." "Oh, God." I put my knuckle in my mouth. "Shut me up." Esteban smiled. "I would never pray for that. I'm just afraid for you and for Esperanza. I'm sorry for saying this. It's probably a very nice place, but I can't stand to think of you stuck here forever." "Don't think of us here forever. Think of us back in Guatemala with our families, having another baby, when the world is different from now." "When will that ever be?" I said. "Never." "Don't say that." He touched my cheek. I was afraid I was going to cry, or worse, that I would throw my arms around his ankles like some lady in a ridiculous old movie and refuse to let him go. When tears did come to me, it was a relief. That it was only tears. "Esteban, I know it doesn't do any good to say things like this, but I don't want to lose you. I've never lost anybody I loved, and I don't think I know how to." I looked away down the flat paved street. "I've never known anybody like you." He took both my hands in his. Nor I you, Taylor. Can you write? Would it be safe? I mean, you could use a fake return address or something. We can send word by way of Maddie, so you will know where we are and what happens to us. I wish that didn't have to be all. I know. His black pupils move back and forth between my eyes. But it does, doesn't it? There's no way around the hurt, is there? You just have to live with it. Yes, I'm sorry. Esteban, do you understand what happened back there in that office with Esperanza? Yes. I keep thinking it was a kind of, what would you call it? A catharsis. A catharsis, I said, and she seems happy, honest to God, as happy as if she'd really found a safe place to leave Esmain behind. But she's believing in something that isn't true. Do you understand what I'm saying? It seems wrong somehow. Mija, in a world as wrong as this one, all we can do is to make things as right as we can. He put his hands on my shoulders and kissed me very, very sweetly, and then he turned around and walked into the house. All four of us had buried someone we loved in Oklahoma. I called Mama from a payphone at a Shell station. I dug two handfuls of coins out of my jeans pockets, splayed them out on the metal shelf, and dialed. I was scared to death she would hang up on me. She had every right. I hadn't said boo to her for almost 2 months, not even to congratulate her on getting married. She'd written to say they'd had a real nice time at the wedding and that Harlan was moving into our house. Up until the wedding, he'd always lived in a so-called bachelor apartment, which means a bed plus hot plate plus roach motel in his sock drawer and back of LJ's paint and body. There was static in the line. Mama, I'm sorry to bother you, I said. I'm just outside of Oklahoma City, so I thought I'd give you a ring. It's a lot closer than Arizona. Is that you? Bless your heart. It is you. I'll swan. Now, weren't you sweet to call? She sounded so far away. So how's it going, Mama? How's married life treating you? She lowered her voice. Something's wrong, isn't it? Well, why would you think that? Well, either you've got a bad cold or you've been crying. Your sound's all up in your head. The tears started coming again, and I asked Mama to hang on just a minute. I had to put down the receiver to blow my nose. The one thing Luann hadn't thought of was that I should have packed 2 dozen hankies. When I got on the line again, the operator was asking for more coins, so I dropped them in. Mom and I listened to the weird bonging song and didn't say anything to each other for a little bit. I just lost somebody I was in love with, I finally told her. I just told him goodbye and I'm never going to see him again. Well, what did you turn him loose for? Mama wanted to know. I never saw you turn loose of nothing you wanted. This is different, Mama. He wasn't mine to have. She was quiet for a minute. We listened to the static playing up and down. It sounded like music from Mars. Mama, I feel like, I don't know what, like I've died. I know, you feel like you'll never run into another one that's worth turning your head around for, but you will. You'll see. No, it's worse than that. I don't even care if I ever run into anybody else. I don't know if I even want to. Well, Taylor, honey, that's the best way to be. It's not on the lookout. That way you don't have to waste your time. Just let it slip up on you while you're going about your business. I don't think it will. I feel like I'm too old. Old my foot. Lordy child, look at me. I'm so far over the hill I can't call the hogs to follow, and here I am running around getting married like a teenager. It's just as well you're not here. You'd have to tell everybody. Don't pay no mind that old fool. That's just my mother done got bit by the love bug at an elderly age. I laughed. You're not elderly, I said. It won't be as long as it has been. Mama, shush. Don't even say that. Oh, don't you worry about me. I don't care if I drop over tomorrow. I'm having a good time. That's good, Mama. I'm glad. I really am. I've done quit cleaning houses. I take in some washing now and again to keep me out of trouble, but I'm getting about ready to join the Women's Garden Club instead. The only dirt I feel like scratching in nowadays is my own. They meet of a Thursday. I couldn't believe it. Mama retired. You know what's funny, I said? I just can't picture you without an iron or a mop or something like that in your hand. Oh, picture it, girl. It's a pretty sight. You remember Mrs. Wickentot, the one always wore high heels to the grocery and thought she was the cat's meow? Yeah, I remember. Her kids never would give me the time of day. They called me the cleaning lady's girl. Well, you can put it to rest now because I told her off good when I quit. I told her if I had the kind of trash she has in her closets and the way she lets those boys run wild, what I found under their beds, I just wouldn't act so high and mighty is what I told her. You told her that? I did, and then some. All these years, these ladies get to thinking they own you, that you wouldn't dare breathe a word for fear of getting fired. Now I think they're all scared to death I'm going to take out an ad in the paper. I could just see it right on the back page under the obituaries and deed of trust announcements, or better yet, on the society page. Alice Jean Greer Elston wishes to announce that Irma Rubecker has 52 pints of molded elderberry jelly in her basement. May Ritchie's dishes would be carried off by the roaches if she didn't have hired help. And Minerva Wickentot's boys read porno magazines. I couldn't stop laughing. You ought to do it, I said. It would be worth the 35 cents a word. Well, I probably won't, but it's good for a gal to have something like that up her sleeve, don't you think? She chuckled. It makes people respect you. Mama, you're really something. I don't know how the good Lord packed so much guts into one little person. The words were no sooner out of my mouth before I realized this was something she used to say to me. In high school, when I was having a rough time of it, she'd said it practically every other day. How's that young'un of yours? Mama wanted to know. She never failed to ask. She's fine. She's asleep in the car right now, or I'd put her on to say hi, or peas and carrots, more likely. You never know what she's going to say. Well, she comes by that honest. Don't say that, Mama. That means it proves a baby's not a bastard. If it acts like you, it proves it's legitimate. Well, I never thought about it that way. It's okay. I guess I'm just sensitive, since she's not blood kin. Well, I don't think blood's the only way kids come by things honest. Not even the main way. It's what you tell them, Taylor. If a person is bad, say, then it makes them feel better to tell their kids that they're even worse. And then that's just exactly what they'll grow up to be. You remember those Hardbines? Yeah, Newt. I especially remember Newt. That boy never had a chance. He was just doing his best to be what everybody in Pittman said he was. Mama, you were always so good to me. I've been meaning to tell you that. You acted like I'd hung up the moon. Sometimes I couldn't believe you thought I was that good. But most of the time you believed it. Yeah, I guess most of the time I thought you were right. The operator came on and asked for more money. My pile of change was thinning out. We're just about done, I told her. But she said this was for the minutes that we'd already talked. I was out of quarters and had to use a whole slew of nickels. Guess what? I said to Mama after the coins had dropped. Here's the big news. Turtle's my real daughter. I adopted her. Did you? Now aren't you smart? How'd you do that? Kind of by hook or crook. I'll tell you about it in a letter. It's too complicated for long distance, but it's all legal. I've got the papers to prove it. Lord have mercy. Married and a legal grandma all in the same summer. I can't wait to see her. We'll get back there one of these days, I said. Not this trip, but we will, I promise. You better watch out. One of these days, me and old Harlan might just head up for Arizona. I wish you would. Neither of us wanted to hang up. We both said bye about 3 times. Mama, I said, this is the last one. I'm hanging up now, okay? Bye. And say hi to Harlan for me, too, okay? Tell him I said be good to you or I'll come whip his butt. I'll tell him.